May the 9th, 2023. Guys, you're looking at current images of our sun. This is the SDO and some of the HMI images. Now, in the center is sunspot 3297. But guys, here to the right, 3296, this has been the troublemaker, and it's been getting stronger and stronger in the M-class flares. Almost had an X flare, and we've got a coronal mass ejection coming from that one and one of the M flares before it. We'll take a look at that. But these are amazing images of our sun, and the trouble is all in the northern hemisphere of the sun. And if you drew a line straight across what you would call the equator, the Earth is slightly below that as for if you put everything on a flat ecliptic plane. But 3296 has been the troublemaker. 3297 is growing. On spaceweather.com, it says Geomagnetic Storm Watch. Geomagnetic storms are possible on May the 10th and the 11th in response to an incoming CME from a reversed polarity sunspot, AR 3296. Storm levels should range from a G1 minor to G2 moderate and a slight chance of a G3 strong. During strong storms, auroras can descend to mid-latitudes and be visible in U.S. states such as Oregon, Nebraska, and Virginia. And the last CME we had that with the great aurora that emanated from it, I think it was a G4 geomagnetic storm. There were images of the aurora from the border of Texas and Mexico, red sky. But if you look at this chart, it says the intensifying solar activity, and I've been watching it. If you look to the right on May the 8th, right here, there was an M15. Notice how long it lasted. I went over and watched the image that you're seeing there in the teal, and that thing, it was for hours glowing, and that just tells you how powerful it is and how much energy that it puts out. Also, when it creates a CME, how long it takes that CME to pass, because it's like a long tide instead of a short wave. But if you notice, it goes up. You've got an M1 here, M2, and then this M7 right there. That's just under an X flare. You notice over here this X right there, just under it. Almost happened. Now the sunspot behind it, which is in this area of this picture, that one's growing, but this has been the most active so far, the 3229. And I agree with him. It says the intensity of the flares is increasing, and the next flare may be in the offing before the backward sunspot rotates off the solar disk this weekend. Now, the Earth's polar caps are being affected also. Notice the red in this map. Right now, the sun is over the U.S. and South America. You can see that in the blue area, but the caps are red, and it's called polar cap absorption event. It says don't try to use a shortwave radio inside the Arctic Circle this week. It might not work. A deep polar cap absorption event is in progress. Red zones in this global map show where shortwave transmissions are being absorbed. Frequencies below 15 megahertz are almost completely blacked out, while anything below 35 megahertz has been attenuated at least a little. What's causing it says protons, not photons, but protons, accelerated by the May 7th halo CME, are now hitting our planet. Earth's magnetic field funnels these particles toward the poles, while their ionizing effect causes the absorption of the shortwave radio. The absorption event is intensifying. You can monitor the progress here. Guys, go to spaceweather.com. That's where we're looking at the information now, and you can see where the link is right there in the bottom. But read the article. You can tell by the chart. And if you think about it, we've seen it before. We've watched our magnetopoles push back towards the planet as solar wind increases. And a large solar event, we've seen it collapse down into the satellite band. That's what we're seeing now. The poles are being affected because the magnetic shields are, and that's why your compass works. That's why it's reading those magnetic fields north and south. Now, another site that we have had a link on BPearthWatch.com from the beginning, as well as Space Weather, you just saw spaceweather.com, is solarham.net. The links are there, but that's what we're looking at now. What they've taken is an SDO image of the colorized magnetogram, And it shows us 3296. This has been the troublemaker. Notice the red and the blue there. That's the reverse polarity, or opposite polarity is what I call it. And notice 3297 is growing, and it has a very large blue area and an elongated red area of reverse polarities. 3296 is mostly red. But when you get them close together, you're going to get that arcing effect. And will this one grow that they're watching? There's another one coming that definitely has red in it. We cannot see if it's got blue there until it comes around. Mercury and Venus are still on this side of between the Earth and the Sun. So that's what we're looking at. Now let's look at the graphs that's going to show us where the CMEs are. Now what we're looking at, you've seen it many times, is the Enlil solar wind prediction. And you've got two graphs, one here at the top. The Earth is represented in the green lines, both in the top and bottom charts. And this is radial velocity, this is plasma density. How much energy is in that wave, that CME that's coming at us? That's what we're looking at. And when it's normally flowing, you still have that energy coming at us from the sun, just in the normal solar wind. And the red here and the blue arrows are two satellites called stereo A and B, here and here. They're very close to Earth. Sometimes they're on the opposite side. Now stereo B, we don't get much information from it. Both are past their expected lifetime in space, and they've encountered tremendous solar flare impacts over the last few solar cycles. So they've been there and they've seen it. And when this channel first began, we could see stereo be very good. And a lot of times they will be often in a triangle formation, but they are in the orbit of Earth. And what they do, depending on how far they are apart, it depends on what we can see on the back edge of the sun, for example. But right now, because just the normal activity of their orbits, they're close to us. So we're getting very similar images or impact information from all three. But again, plasma density, the amount of energy in the wave, in the bottom, radial velocity is the solar wind speed. So we're going to see it jumping up very quickly to around 500 kilometers per second. If you go in and translate that, you'll see that anywhere in that area, from there, 600-700 kilometers per second, you're approaching 1,000,000 miles per hour. But you can type that in, put KMS to MPH, or miles per hour, kilometers per second, and you'll find that graph, and you can tell what it gives you an idea. Let me say that. You can't really tell it because the human mind cannot fathom a wind speed of 1,000,000 miles per hour. Look at what a hurricane can do at 100 miles an hour, just saying. But that's what the bottom graph represents, and that's why all of these bumps are very close together. In the past few years, guys, we watched this, your Earth patterns and your graph on the Earth would be totally different from stereo and A and B, because if they were over here, they may not even encounter the CME. You understand? So right now they're all very similar because they're very close. Let's play this forward. Now the CME leaves on the 8th. What's your timestamp at the top? We'll stop this right at the kind of the peak of impact here. Let me back up just a hair. Let's come back to midnight on the 11th. Now that's going to be 6 p.m. tomorrow evening on the East Coast. Now, so what is happening is it's going to be the sun will not be so Earth facing as far as the U.S. as if it was going to be at noon or 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's going to be kind of an Atlantic event, midnight there, 6 p.m. here, as far as impact time. But we're going to keep an eye on it because there's been building stress because of the continued CMEs on our tectonic plates, and that's always a problem. Also, it affects your electronics, it affects your mood, it can affect headaches, dizziness. I've seen it all myself. And guys, we know the Earth is rushing into catastrophic events because of the book of Revelation. But we also know, and I mentioned it in the last video, there's 4 short chapters at the end of the Old Testament in the book of Malachi. Read them. Chapter 4, it's talking about Shemesh, not the Son of God, but the actual physical Son, and how it has a major role in the actually the takedown of the satanic influences is what it's talking about, their power and their destruction. But also, you guys up in Alberta, Canada, you need to pay attention to the wildfires. There's a link, and let's go there a moment. I'll just go ahead and show you. Now, this website is alberta.ca for Canada /wildfire status ASPX. But if you go into out and type in Alberta wildfires, it's going to bring you here. You got some pictures, and you've got an interactive map. Click there. Even a couple of hours ago, guys, as it was just getting sunrise here, I was looking at the satellite images over the U.S., and you could see, even though it was darkened because you had very little light over on the west coast, you could see the smoke gathering in Alberta. Now, this is an interactive map, and it's got quite a bit of information. You've got 88 active wildfires. That's down from 100 yesterday. And what's the chart is showing here, red, you see scattered throughout this area, which is heavily, it's a large area of oil fields, gas fields, production, pipelines, a lot of things to do with that. And it affects the U.S., it affects everyone. And so you're going to see some gas prices go up because all of this is being evacuated. Yesterday, 30,000 people, most of the oil fields and things are shut down because either they're being affected or someone in this line is being affected that they need to go through their process, whether it's shipping and a delivery or whatever. But the out of control is the red areas. And this is interactive, so you can pull it up. You can see there's 5 here where it looked like there was just 1 dot. And then it shows the burnout area or the trail of fire behind it. Now, this is Fox Creek area, and you can come in here and check it out. If you scroll here, the yellow fires are called being held, or BH. Given current weather conditions and resources, the wildfire is not anticipated to grow past expected boundaries. Now, all of this is under a wildfire watch. The green areas or green fires that you see are under control. The wildfire is completely contained and will be extinguished. Blue is mutual aid. The wildfire is outside the forest protection, and assistance is being provided to the lead agency. So you've got local fire units and state fire units there, and forestry people there. It's possibly what they're saying. They're not saying the intensity, though, of the blue fires, even though they're saying they have mutual aid involved in it. But they're large areas. The oil fields, again, a lot of that's being affected and evacuated. On the right, guys, there's wildfire status. And right here, you can see different charts, suspected cause. They're saying lightning is 3.19% of the cause of these. Humans, 47.55%. 42.9 or 26% is under investigation. And guys, when we have seen, I'm not saying anything, but we have seen in the U.S. and many places the destruction of our infrastructure. And we know all areas have wildfires, but again, lightning is 3.19% of this. Just wanted to throw this out there. Again, this is Alberta Wildfire Status Dashboard. Go to Alberta Wildfires, click there, go to the link that I showed you for the map here. You can pull this up, look at your locations, and go through this. This is the Peace River, Nampa, Crimshaw. And guys, I don't know. I've never been to Canada. The closest I've been is up on Traverse Bay, and that's central Michigan. But I know the country's beautiful. I've seen a lot of images from it. I've seen some television that was recorded in these areas. And the wildfires are a problem. And we're getting into some very warm weather. Over to the right is going to show you current year wildfires by forest areas: Calgary, Edison, Fort McMurray, Grand Prairie, High Level, Peace River, Rocky Mountain, on and on, White Court Forest area. And you can come there and check it out. Again, there's more than this, but let me show you the current satellite images, and I'll get off there and quit talking. Now, this is satellite images that are current now as of 9:19 a.m. Central Time here in the U.S. And you can see smoke. Look at the top of this image. See the discoloration in the clouds and the mixture here over the central part, south central part. A lot of that is in that map, but you can see the different areas and the smoke. Now, notice that in that map that was interactive, and we looked at the red lines that were the burn paths where the fire had already passed through, that the wind was coming out of the northwest, going southeast, or from, if you were looking at it from here, it would be going from the top left to the bottom right. Now that's changing. So some of the areas that had escaped that burn may be affected by this change in the air current. So if you're there, pay attention to that. If you have friends or family that are there, make sure they're aware of these satellite images and this changing wind pattern, because there's enough there, 88 wildfires, some of them are out of control, that they need to be aware of. Just, anytime we have a situation like this, everybody is not aware of it. I know you are aware of the fires, but when you have this quick wind change pattern, things can get dangerous. And notice the circulation to the right here. If that moves in onto Alberta, guys, you're going to see an increase in the fires because of the increased wind, and you're in a no burn situation already. But we're watching it, guys. You watch it. It's a heads up. Be safe.